Good morning, welcome to Cabinet. Is there any apologies?
Everybody's present, Chair.
Okay, order of business.
Yeah, as published.
Thank you. Any declarations of interest? Now or later, let us know, thank you. Go on to item 4, and this is the 2015-16 quarter 1 performance report. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Apologies for being a little late this morning. As you say, this is the quarter 1 report for Mid Lothian Council. I think what it shows is reasonably steady progress across a number of areas. I'll just pull out a very few issues. I think the things which are particularly notable are certainly the formal approval of the integration scheme for health and social care, and of course we've now gone on to have the first meeting of the IJB. The ongoing work in children's services, partly in order to meet the various duties under the 2014 Act, but also to continue the review and transformation of that service. I think some positive signs of pupil progress at P1 and P7, which is encouraging. There's more to be done there, clearly. And of course, very significant ongoing work in relation to both Borders Rail and the potential city deal, which are very major issues for this council. In terms of the challenges, as ever, funding pressures, the ongoing need to deliver transformation, the impact of welfare reform, and although numbers are small in that regard at the moment, we've of course since quarter 1 had the Chancellor's statement on the 8th of July, which will impact significantly on that. In terms of indicators, we're early in the year. I think the only comment I would make is it's good to see the apparent progress on sickness levels at this early stage. We hope that will be maintained through the year. Thank you.
Thank you very much. As you say, as everything's improving, and it's really good to see that, especially sick leave, when we were so worried about it previously at new buyers. Would anyone else like to make comment? Okay, then that's fine. We can move on to the next one, B, health and social care, customer and housing services.
Thank you, Chair. In terms of the first quarter, we've seen registrar services move into customer and housing services from the 1st of April, and we've taken that opportunity within our service review to look at the service on a lean systems basis, and there are changes that we are able to do in terms of channel shift, in terms of also supporting the registrar's team with support services through the contact centre and also within the wider service. So that will develop through the course of the year. We had the Mayfield Library and Customer Hub launch yesterday, which again reflects new ways of working and how we can deliver accessible services within that locality, which is one of the priority areas for the Council. We've also had confirmation in the first quarter of the bibliotherapy service, the continuation of funding for that, which has been well received and is well regarded, and indeed can make you aware that that will feature on the BBC Culture Show, as there was a recording during the festival last week of that particular project. We don't have the date yet, but we'll make you aware. In terms of community safety, the Safer Communities Board has reviewed the shadow arrangements for reducing reoffending partnership, which will take place at the disestablishment of community justice authorities by 2017, and indeed that's been approved by Council in extending the remit for the Safer Communities Board and the wider partnership aspect that will come with reducing reoffending. In revenue services, we've seen continued increase in channel shift, both with revenues and library services, through the digital by design services that we are developing in response to welfare reform, but also in terms of the accessibility agenda through the customer services review. In housing services, we made our submission to the Scottish Housing Regulator. The inspection regime has changed from an on-site inspection in recent years to one of a self-assessment and submission, and indeed that's gone in. And in speaking to the regulator last week, that seemed again to have been well received, and an improving service is being demonstrated. In housing strategy, we'd made our submission in terms of the resources to Scottish Government in the phase 2 of the social housing programme, and during the first quarter a tenant satisfaction survey was carried out, which is also part of the submission requirements for the regulator, and that will be reported to Cabinet in Q2. In terms of challenges, we have the ongoing situation at New Banners Crescent. We're certainly at the final phase of that, with 2 tenants remaining as of today for relocation, and indeed my building services colleagues are making preparation for the clearance of the site thereafter and redevelopment. In revenues, the collections continue to increase both in rent collection and council tax, which is significant with the background of the economic environment and also the welfare reform changes and the range of intervention schemes which DWP has produced in the past year, where we are having information shared between local authorities and HMRC, and indeed fraud and error schemes for interventions and recoveries. In terms of universal credit, as the Chief has indicated, the projected numbers were rather more significant from DWP than they are. 390 cases were projected at this time in the year. Actually, we've got 50, and 42 of those have housing costs. And within those 42, we've requested alternative payment arrangements for 30, which indicates the more complex cases, those that are challenging and are already in rent arrears before they go on to universal credit. Which contrasts with the expected 5% of claimants only requiring support. We're finding it's 5% of claimants who do not require support. In community safety, we've referenced the reducing the offending agenda. That will be a challenge in the coming year. We're particularly well placed, I have to say, and that's been acknowledged from the Community Justice Authority as it stands, and also partners in our preparation for that. But we continue to have to make preparation in the lack of Scottish Government guidance at this stage. But that's in the background of continuing antisocial behaviour. There has been an increase in the first quarter after a 5-year downward trend, and we're seeing that in vandalism, fire raising and youth calls, and indeed analysis of that is showing that it is largely attributed to alcohol consumption, and that is an issue which the Licensing Forum will continue to pursue with the Licensing Board, as there is a joint event in the coming months. Happy to pause for any questions, Chair.
Thank you. Does anyone have comments? Jamie?
I would just like to make a comment about libraries. I've been thinking a lot about libraries recently. When you can actually get books on an iPhone and young people not using libraries anymore apart from schools, I just wonder what the future is. And the future is local support services in libraries. So that probably is the future. But it's people get very exercised if we say we're closing the library and everybody's up in arms about it. But it's something we'll have to think about as if in the future.
I'll just respond to Councillor Bryant. Certainly, he's correct. There is that shift in technology, and in fact, we're seeing there is in physical transactions, we've had about 28 to 30% of a reduction across all our libraries, but our e-services, by contrast, have increased by 33%. So people are still accessing our services in a different way, which is really what our channel shift agenda is about, in making that responsive. But equally, as he's indicated, our libraries are being used in different ways now, both in terms of the schools, where they adjoin those for numeracy and literacy, and the book bug and PEEP for development of early years, and also in terms of other events and accessing other council services, which is indeed the planned way for us to go. And also the opportunity with the development of hubs in this local authority. By contrast, we're one of the few councils who are providing new facilities and replacement facilities for libraries, where others, as you've acknowledged, are closing down those services.
Thank you. There are a few challenges that are coming forward, but some of them I think would be quite exciting. The CGA disestablishment and us taking that on as our own responsibility and addressing our own particular needs is a good challenge, I think. And the other one is unfortunately new buyers, but good progress has been made with that. And it's real. I remember the days when the housing service was not as good as it was today. So congratulations on improving. And now we can move on to the next one, which is adult social care.
Thank you, Chair. The first quarter has seen really considerable progress across all areas. The first area I draw to attention is really the work we're doing around support for carers. It's a very high priority for us, and you will see from the developments that are mentioned here to do with working with Vocal, working with Alzheimer's Scotland on post-diagnostic support, etc. What we're doing is we're working very closely with the voluntary sector, and it's that partnership that's really important, and it's not one single initiative, it's that whole range of initiatives that are we're working together in unison really to understand and support family carers as best we can. Substance misuse services, the focus here is really moving from that treatment model to recovery and doing that shift in terms of our energy and resources to supporting people who are in recovery. And again, we're seeing really good results from that. We already have the Horizon Cafe in Dalkeith, but it's more than that. We've also got peer support workers who are now working, people who've been through the recovery process and are now working in organisations in the voluntary sector, and that's bringing a whole new approach, and it's challenging professional workers around their attitudes and some of the stigma that we carry across the whole of society in relation to substance misuse. So that's been a very effective intervention, and we're also doing work around supporting people back into employment, and that's ongoing as well. Mental health, again, we're seeing a shift here, and that's what's highlighted in this development. We're continuing to deliver services to those people who have a mental health diagnosis, whether it be bipolar, schizophrenia, etc. But we're focusing more on what we call mental well-being, and that's really focusing on that mental ill health that has a huge impact on people's daily lives, whether it be anxiety, depression, etc. And what we're doing is a lot more outreach services to our communities. It's not about coming into a centre in Bonnyrigg. It's about being able to pick up these supports in their local communities. And just to reference the earlier discussion on libraries, it's about, we've got a healthy reading scheme that's in libraries, but we're now developing the bibliotherapy, which is really, really effective and bringing a lot of support to people in distress and making a difference in people's lives. The Chief Exec has already referenced the milestone that we've reached last week in relation to integration. The next two issues that are highlighted are about how we work in health and social care with the local community. We're all challenged to work in ways that we call co-production. It means not doing onto people, but it means more about listening and understanding the impact of what we're doing, but also what other stakeholders out there are doing. And the two events, regular public events, the two that are highlighted here are one for older people and one for people with physical disability. These events are organised alongside the voluntary sector and people who use services, and they're a really good opportunity to get an understanding of people's experience of services so that we can continue that journey of improvement, but doing it together. Learning disability, we're very excited about the progress that's been made in the new building in Pennycook. But again, it's one strand, and it's about, there's a lot going on in our learning disability service, and the direction of travel is about making sure that we have the services here in Midlothian to be able to support those people who've got very high level needs, and we have the skills across the workforce. So the development of the 12-person unit in Pennycook is very welcome. We're making really good progress at the moment. We have no adult placed out with Midlothian. We've got one gentleman, but where he is now, his family have moved and it's his home, but otherwise we have no adults with learning disabilities, with complex needs placed out with Midlothian, and our numbers are very, very small in terms of people who are using hospital care at the moment, and we have plans in place for all of them to be discharged. So really good progress in learning disability. Funding pressures are highlighted. We work with funding pressures all of the time, and I guess it's really about working to eliminate waste in the system and making sure that everything we're doing is bringing added value in terms of our interventions. There's been a lot of focus on sickness absence. We are challenged by sickness absence in all of our services. Part of it is to do with the age profile of our staff, but part of it is also to do with the nature of the task. In new buyers, I was looking at the stats yesterday, and in the last 6 months, we've reduced sickness absence by 75%. I'm not complacent about that, because the challenge is to maintain that across all, make sure we're doing that across all of our services, and to maintain it. We have nobody on long-term sickness absence at the moment. But again, I would emphasise it's a need to keep working at this and to maintain it is the challenge. But again, it's just like sickness absence, the issues aren't just, there's a very close interface between the funding issue and the quality of service, and we can't look at funding in absence from improving quality. And it's the biggest issue for me in relation to sickness absence isn't just about the money, it's about the quality and the experience of people who are receiving services. They need to have a healthy workforce who are going to be at their work every day, and that's what's really important for our service users. Quality we're continuing to work at with our external providers. We have and are continuing to make headway in relation to our home care providers, that staff are paid the living wage, and there's a lot of focus across within COSLA, etc., on terms and conditions for care workers, but that also needs to be linked to quality and continuity, making sure we're getting the right staff into services, but also that we're valuing, we're respecting, and we're supporting them. And it's how we do that together, not just within the council, but more importantly with our independent providers out there and the voluntary sector, because at the end of the day, most of the care that's delivered in Midlothian is delivered by them. But the introduction of the living wage has given us a real breakthrough and a way forward, but there's much more to be done. And again, focus on making absolutely sure that we're getting best value for all of our services. I'm happy to respond to any questions.
Thank you very much. Any questions or comments? Jamie?
Thank you, Evelyn, for a good report. I just want to make some comment about mental health at the moment. In the news, Mr. Ian Duncan-Smith, who's now an expert on mental health, says that they should be working, even if it's only 2 hours a week. So I anticipate there may be problems ahead with mental health in Midlothian.
Yeah, happy to respond to that on two fronts. We've been very aware of the impact of sanctions in particular on people with mental health issues and people in the criminal justice system. It was the criminal justice system that we, in terms of social work services, first felt the impact of sanctions, and very much as people whose lives aren't orderly and who are chaotic, who don't always open the letters that come through the door and weren't responding in time. And so it's been a big concern for us, particularly for predominantly issues have been not exclusively but young males whose lives have been less chaotic, and the danger is that the loss of income creates more chaos in their lives. So we've been very aware of that. I don't want to agree with or disagree with politicians for that matter, but making a contribution is really, really important. But it's important that people do it in a way that enhances their self-esteem. It's probably one of the most important things for people with learning disability and mental health is that they feel that they're able to make a contribution to their community. And sometimes that's through paid work, sometimes it's through voluntary work. And I mentioned already the peer support workers. Those are folk who've been really hit the bottom, who've dealt with their substance misuse issues through the recovery process and are now supporting other people to make a recovery, and that's a really important contribution that supports them in their recovery journey as well. So yes, the changes in welfare reform are a huge challenge for people that we work with, but there's also something about how we support people to make that contribution, whether it's paid or unpaid, and it's often part of their therapy or the recovery plan.
Thanks, Evan. The point I was making was that you just can't say that every disabled person or mental work's going to help them. And obviously people that you know that would help, you'll be doing that.
Thank you very much. The substance misuse in the recovery cafes, I've been going down there a couple of times and it's really good. I think people are really taking a pride in the things that they're doing and showing to members of the public, and that's just, as you were speaking, although they're not paid for that, they're very appreciative. Well, I'm appreciative. One, you get a lovely dinner sitting in a nice surroundings and you're able to view all the artwork. It's quite a nice atmosphere in the place as well. But there are funding and pressures in that department, and we just have to keep working to come up with good ideas to do what we need to do in the best way possible. Now we can move on. Any more questions, statements? No. And now we can move on to children's services.
Okay, thank you. I think in terms of the progress, really it's best described as prevention. Our Q1 child protection figures have remained stable, with 32 names on the register. If you remember, in past years at this point, we've had, in the low 100, like 135 and things like that. So over the past year, we've managed to stabilise the child protection figures. Similarly, with our looked after children away from home, figures have decreased there, and similarly with our children looked after at home. So this leads to showing that our preventative work is working, and our stage 2 supports, and that goes through the residential review and also the family resilience project. So this is all preventative work that we're doing to keep children out of the system. We've undertaken the residential review, and staff will all be in place, and then following that we're doing a review of our services, and the learning from the family resilience project, in it being an approach, is what we're going to use in terms of the review of children's services. So the family resilience project worked with families where they needed it and when they needed it. So it was a service that if the worker was required at 7 o'clock in the morning, the worker was there at 7 o'clock in the morning. If they're required at 9 o'clock at night, they were there at 9 o'clock at night. So we're wanting to move that approach throughout our children's services, and again, just that preventative element. In terms of challenges, whilst our child protection and our looked after figures are low, we just want you to be aware that having 3 children in secure costs us a lot of money. It's $250,000 per young person in secure accommodation. So again, we need to work really hard to get these young people back, in our communities. The other thing, the big thing that is an emerging challenge for us all in terms of services is the historical child abuse inquiry that will be set up, and information from our police colleagues as this will impact significantly. We haven't had anything as yet, but again, just to keep that on the agenda. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thanks, Chair. Not really a question, it's just things that come out of this report. Mary's talked about prevention and the work that's been done, and that's very encouraging. And it's, on the second paragraph, the early intervention that's going and breaking the cycle off that. And it's a really good report, and all we can say is congratulations.
Any more questions? Thank you. We can move now on to communities and the economy.
This report really, the emphasis is on the work in terms of the City Deal, which is led by Ian Johnson and Kenneth, and also Borders Rail. These have been the things in this quarter that have really been focusing our minds. So we've got the opening of the Borders Rail on the 5th, golden ticket for the public, and then we've got the formal opening on the 9th. So again, staff are really focused on the countdown to this. In terms of City Deal, there'll be a bid put together, which Kenneth can report on to our colleagues. And in terms of CES plan, the consultations are currently taking place in Midlothian at the moment, and we've had feedback from the organisers saying that it's been positive in Midlothian, and the questions that are asked have been relevant and whatnot. So that's been really good. So again, it's as set out in terms of the progress report, and the challenges kind of reflect the progress. So we want to get maximisation of the Borders Rail. We want to get maximisation of the city deal. You know, so we need that sort of step change in how we're working in Midlothian. One of the other areas is that we want to submit another bid for Time Leader funding, and that's due on the 1st of September. So again, staff working hard to ensure that we're successful this time around. So happy to take any questions. Thank you. Jamie?
Just very briefly, Chair. The Edinburgh City Region deal is certainly one of the most exciting things that I've ever been involved in, and I'm hoping that's going to be a good thing for us here. The Borders Rail, I have friends who stay at S-Bank who say it's going to be a total disaster, so be prepared, please, for that. CES plan's going well. The bids, Derek Rosie has done a great job in Pennycook. We also have to be aware that there is funding for the Bush and Dalkeith, and if we don't get our act together, we might lose that funding. So I'm just highlighting that to Derek. Hopefully he will help me with that. And the Food and Drinks Award, again, me and Derek went to a great event at Oxenford Castle, and a great time was had by all.
Thank you. Derek?
Yeah, just Jamie touched on there the Pennycook bids. That shows with the council and the community working together what can be achieved. Up to now, it's looking quite good. We've had 3 very successful Pennycook markets with stallholders selling out their goods within about an hour in the first one. The stalls have now more than doubled from the first one. It was 30 the last market, and they're all very happy, and it's achieved a vast increase in a lot of the local shops. They're all quite happy, and we're getting letters. Eddie, the project coordinator, had letters of congratulations for one of them, which is even round the corner from the precinct, where I thought I was a bit worried in case that folk are obviously spreading out a bit from there. So it's looking good, and as Jamie touched on, I think there is money available there, and it's maybe something we have got to look at, because I think Jamie and I are talking about we might go to a bids thing that's happening in Bathgate in September, and it's to bear in mind it's not just about town centres, it can be about anything, it can be about tourism, it can be about cycleways or whatever. So there's quite a bit there we can go for, and I think as a council we have got to look at utilising that. But yeah, I think it's been a success up to now. Thanks.
Thank you. Bob?
Thanks, Chair. Just the second last paragraph, the publication of the Bonneray, Glasswade and Fulton Hall neighbourhood plan. I'd like to welcome that. It's not quite published to universal acclaim, but I'm hoping it'll put to bed some of the issues that have been in Bonneray over the last few years.
Thank you very much. And Gorebridge Conservation Area. Gorebridge is looking gorgeous again. And as soon as the new Buyers Hall is finished, I think the streetscape up there will be really fabulous. And the city deal is really quite exciting. And I see, because we're in the middle of it all, Central, I think we're the heart of the city deal. I don't know if I'm quite brave enough to say that in Edinburgh yet, but I think one day I will. We can move now on to education, please.
Okay, thank you. So we've reported a number of times just about the percentage of youngsters going on to positive destinations, and at the November period we were 93.7, and when the follow-up report was done we were 90% of young people had found a job. So we've shown a steady increase over the last 5 years, so that's really good. However, there is a new reporting method from the end of August where we will be following young people from 16 to 19, and that will change the way the figures are reported, So youngsters that go to university, they will be in a positive destination that whole way through, as long as they stay within university. Where our youngsters that maybe go on a training course, then leave it and then move on to there's a gap of a month, and then they move on to another training course or a job. Will show a gap. So it's going to be interesting. SDS, we met with them just a few weeks ago, and what they were saying is be prepared for your numbers to drop, but that's because we're following the young person from 16 to 19 all the way through, and not just at 2 points in the year. So we'll report on that when we get that. Again, what we're trying to do is improve attendance. So we've got work ongoing in terms of ensuring that we have attendances, good attendance in school, and really making parents aware that attendance really helps our young people. Good attendance, it's good self-discipline, it helps youngsters move on. So we'll be working very closely to ensure that. In terms of the Scottish Government and education, it's just a moving platform at the moment. We've got the Closing the Gap programme, where 7 local authorities will share 100 million, 60 schools will get individual support, and Midlothian is not in any of those cohorts, so we will get an attainment advisor who will report to the Scottish Government directly, as opposed to reporting to Education Scotland. And then last week there was an announcement by First Minister that she will be judged on the gap being closed. So it's a moving feast in Midlothian at the moment in terms of the data that they want from us, and in terms of how we measure progress for young people. So there's a lot going on in education at the moment. Whilst we're showing improvement, we'll be measured against the Insight tool, which has been reported here as well. So the Insight tool gives you a comparator. So it's not about comparing BSLAC with New Battle. It's about comparing with your comparator, your virtual school. So the number of youngsters in that school compares to a virtual school. So it's a moving feast within education, I have to say, at the moment. Again, the challenges are keeping on with our positive destination, maintaining our teacher numbers. This year, what we had implemented was that our supply would be permanent supply teachers. So we've got people on permanent supply, so there's not a gap there. It's not just about teacher numbers, it's the ratio of teacher numbers to pupils. So at the start of the academic year, we only had 4 vacancies. So you'll see other local authorities have got great big surveys and things trying to get a hold of teachers, great big adverts. At the beginning of the year, we only had 4 staff vacancies. So, that's a credit to our HR department and also the staff within education working really hard to move things forward quickly. So I think we were very fortunate. So I'll leave it there just for any questions.
Thank you, Bob.
Thanks. Yeah, it's good to hear we're doing well in the recruitment, because it is a big issue and there is a shortage coming up. In terms of the positive destinations, COSLAC came up about the government funding being too heavily top-sliced to SDS, and just wondering how badly did we do out of any of that? Is there any problem with that? It came up, the criticism from the Labour group, and I'm afraid our group agreed as well, a slight criticism of the government and maybe too much of the money being top-sliced away from the local authorities. On many other things, of course, it's very encouraging. Of course, the devil's always in the statistics, as it all comes up in the end.
Do you want a response about SDS?
Yeah.
Or
Only if you have one.
It is top sliced for SDS, and if money comes down to the local authority, we can do a lot locally compared to SDS, but I couldn't possibly comment about anything else.
Thank you, and then just moving on to commercial operations.
Chair, with your indulgence and the committee's indulgence, I think I'll do the three services at once, because one of the difficulties going last is a lot of the points I was going to raise have been more than adequately covered by colleagues. This being the first report for 2015-16, I'm pleased to report a number of long-term projects are nearing fruition. Borders Rail is imminent. Zero waste is going to planning pretty soon. Food waste is coming up before the end of the year. You've heard the noise this morning. EWIM is actually being delivered after a lengthy period. My colleague Kevin's mentioned New Buyers Crescent and Gore Avenue. I was pleased with the results of the seminar the other week and giving me authority to go and sue the necessary contractors. We've also approved an energy strategy, and it's up to us as officers to put flesh around that. Also within my colleague Gary Fairley's area, purchase to pay is progressing satisfactorily behind the scenes. We've got document management, and the committee management system will be rolled out later in the year. So there's a lot of major projects that are actually beginning to make a difference on the ground. This year will be an exceptionally busy year, and looking from now through the first 3 weeks in September, there's absolutely phenomenal amount of work impacting not only the division but across the council. In terms of the challenges, we've got a number of major projects ongoing. We've currently got a review of pay and grading. We're committed to delivering excellent across all services. Also creating opportunities for our young people. In the reports from Gary, Ricky and Gary, there's opportunities for apprentices, 5 in Ricky's area, a couple of trainee accountants have been advertised, apprentice tradesmen, so we're actually giving opportunities for the young people of Mid-Lothian. And also in my division, uniquely, we work with all parts of the council, so as well as providing frontline services directly, we're also supporting colleagues in other divisions. And a number of the projects are once in a generation, but we seem to have this conversation every year. There's a lot of projects continually come in and they're major, and it's quite exciting times for me and the team. And also underpin it all, we've got a strong message to maintain financial discipline across all parts of the division. We've had 2 relatively successful years coming in under budget, and we'd hope to continue that. Chair, I'll pause there. If the committee have any questions relating to any of the 3 sections, I'd be happy to answer them. Thank you.
Thank you. Derek?
Yeah, thanks, John. Just really quite a few points to make on what you're saying there. I think, yeah, I mean, the amount of work that's gone on, certainly preparing for the September events, such as Midfest and the Waverley line, well, all that's going on there for the events, there's a lot of work going on in the planning and whatever, and I know from attending some of the key stakeholders events what's going on there. So, yeah, I think congratulations to the staff who have all been involved in this and have the plan for it. It's been quite a lot, and I know there's been a lot of work with, obviously, with who's going to be on the train and that, the security and that. So there's a lot of work staff have done there, and also just touching on the property and the building services part. You can see there from page 121 the amount of things that are going on, and you know, as we speak today, we can hear the work going on in the EWIM project with the hammering and the drilling and all that's going on there. So there's a lot of work going on throughout Mid-Lothian. You can see it from the Burnout Leisure Centre complex, the complex care homes, in Pentland and Midfield refurbishments, things in the phase 2 housing. So there's lots of things happening in Mid-Lothian, and I think the work that's gone in has got to be recognised for the staff. And I think just touch on quickly there, I think it's fair to say is the Small Works programme over the school holidays, that's, I think, been successful, John.
In terms of the Small Works programme, £1 million was actually delivered across a number of facilities on time, on budget, and in times for the school opening. And it's not just a case of putting the builders in. You've got to recognise there's trade holidays, there's got to be facility management staff arrangements to get people in. So actually last Wednesday, when you come into work on the day the schools come back, I'm usually quite nervous. And last Wednesday was a dream. There was nothing going on. It was just a joy to watch the kids going to school and the full knowledge that the works behind the scenes were all delivered. And that's the standards we set out to achieve, and I want to ensure it continues.
Thanks. Put that off.
Thank you very much. Has anyone any questions or further comments to make? In that case, thank you very much for your attendance.